did go get my nails done. I got my toes done actually at the nail shop.
So you feel good about it to go get off the interstate, get your nails done after what just happened?
Because I didn't know I shot anybody, honestly.
It was a Sunday afternoon in Georgia, the kind of warm spring day where people have places to be, simple errands to run, ordinary plans. A group of teenagers were on their way to a baby shower. They had piled into a truck, music probably playing, windows maybe down. They were heading eastbound on Interstate 20, a stretch of highway that cuts through Douglas County, roughly 20 miles west of Atlanta. None of them had any reason to believe that afternoon would change their lives forever. None of them had any reason to believe they were already being followed. It started the way these things almost always start. Somewhere near Villa Rica, the truck changed lanes. Whether it cut someone off or simply merged in a way that felt too close too fast, nobody on the receiving end was
I got off Chapel Hill where they're saying that I got off on. I went to the nail shop. I got my toes done. I went home and I
willing to let it go. Because in the car behind them, a 30-year-old woman named Brittany Griffith had already decided she was angry. And she had decided she wasn't going to stop being angry anytime soon. What followed was not a brief exchange of horn honks and mutual frustration before both parties moved on with their lives. What followed was a pursuit. Brittany Griffith, driving a black sedan, began tailing the teenager's truck down Interstate 20. 10 miles passed, 15 miles. She stayed behind them, then alongside them. She was gesturing. She was making her fury known. And the teenagers, not yet understanding what kind of danger.
Hey, no, hold your. But hey, we was driving and this lady shot.
I need to know where you are.
Oh, sorry, ma'am. My best friend is shot.
This is a 911 call from devastated and shaken individuals who had
they were in responded in kind. The kind of split-second, reactive decision-making that teenagers make when they feel wrongly provoked. They gestured back. They told her, through rolled-down windows, to calm down. And for miles, this situation escalated on a public highway at highway speeds, with neither party making the choice to simply exit and let it end. What the teenagers did not know, what they could not have known, was that Brittany Griffith had a gun, a Smith & Wesson 380. They also could not have known that sitting in the backseat of Griffith's black sedan were 3 children, her own children, ages ranging from 4 to 9 years old. 3 kids strapped into their seats while their mother pursued a vehicle full of teenagers across 15 miles of interstate, rage building with every mile marker that passed. As the truck and the sedan approached the Chapel Hill Road exit, the situation reached its breaking point. Griffith pulled up alongside the truck one final time. A passenger in the truck's back seat, seeing what was happening, pulled out a phone and began recording. The footage lasted only a few seconds, but those seconds captured everything. They captured Brittany Griffith pointing her firearm.
I had a chance to go. I needed to go left, so I went left, right? And she followed me. And since then, since we got to the highway, all the way in the highway.
First responders arrived and Ashlyn Crouch was rushed to Grady Memorial Hospital in Atlanta, one of the country's leading trauma centers. Doctors there confirmed what should have been unsurvivable proximity, brain swelling, and arterial damage. The bullet had passed through her skull. She was 17 years old. Brittany Griffith, meanwhile, had exited at Chapel Hill Road. She drove away from the scene, and according to investigators and court testimony, including statements Griffith herself would later make, she then went to a nail salon and got a pedicure. Let that sit for a moment. A teenager was on her way to Grady Hospital with a bullet wound to her head, and the woman who put it there was choosing a nail color. Back at the gas station, investigators worked quickly. Witnesses were separated and interviewed one by one. All 3 accounts were consistent. The road rage incident had begun near Villa Rica. The black sedan had pursued them for 10 to 15 miles, and a woman had pointed a firearm at them before firing as she exited the highway. Crime scene technicians recovered the bullet from inside the truck, along with blood evidence and a hat that had been pierced by the gunfire. The brief cell phone recording from the backseat passenger was handed over to investigators and immediately recognized as a critical piece of evidence. It was only a few seconds long, but it clearly showed a woman pointing a gun out of a car window at another vehicle on an active interstate highway. Officers needed a name to go with the face, and they needed it fast because the suspect was still out there. With authorization from the family, detectives extracted a still frame from the video and posted it to the Douglasville Police Department's Facebook page. They announced a $5,000 reward for information leading to an arrest. Within minutes, the phone started ringing. Multiple callers identified the same person, Brittany Griffith, a 30-year-old woman from Temple, Georgia. Detectives drove to the address connected to her name. She was not there. Her vehicle was not there. Hours passed, and then, Sometime around 11 o'clock that same night, Sunday, May 1st, 2022, Brittany Griffith walked into the Douglasville Police Department and turned herself in. She had seen the posts. She had seen her face circulating online. She had seen people she knew sending her photos of herself, and she knew what was coming. When detectives sat down with her, Griffith's initial position was that she hadn't done anything. She said she didn't have a gun anymore. She acknowledged she had been in Carrollton that day and had driven eastbound on I-20. She acknowledged she had gotten off at Chapel Hill Road, but she denied any involvement in a shooting. She said she didn't understand what road rage incident people were referring to. She said she had gone home, then gone to the bank, then just come in to figure out what was happening. Investigators presented the photo evidence. They told her it showed her pointing a firearm at the vehicle. They noted that she had already quietly deleted photos from her own Facebook page, pictures that showed the green bracelet she had been wearing that day, visible in the footage on her left wrist. She had panicked, she admitted, when she saw people circulating the image. She said it looked like her, but maintained she hadn't shot anyone. Then something shifted. As investigators continued pressing, pointing out the photo, the video, the witness accounts, the timeline, the physical evidence, Griffith's story began to fracture. She stopped fully denying. She started saying things like, "It doesn't look good for me. It looks like I did it." She began speaking in a way that suggested she knew exactly what the evidence would show, and she was trying to calibrate how much she had to say. Eventually, Brittany Griffith told investigators what happened. She said there had been road rage, and she had fired a shot. She confirmed she had her Smith & Wesson 380 with her. She told them that after the incident, after pulling the trigger on a car full of teenagers on Interstate 20, she exited at Chapel Hill Road, went and got her toenails done, and then later drove to a stretch of the Chattahoochee River near Six Flags and threw the gun into the water. She said she did all of this not fully knowing whether the shot had struck anyone. She had 3 children in her backseat through all of it. Through the 15-mile pursuit, through the shooting, through the pedicure, through the drive to the river to dispose of the weapon. Investigators immediately began working to locate the gun. The Chattahoochee River runs through a significant stretch of the greater Atlanta area, and recovering a small firearm thrown from a bridge was not a straightforward task. Meanwhile, Griffith was booked and held. The following morning, Monday, May 2nd, Brittany Griffith appeared before Douglas County Chief Magistrate Judge Susan Camp for a bond hearing. It was conducted via video conference from the jail. Griffith, wearing a white t-shirt, did not speak during the hearing. A Douglasville police investigator testified about the shooting, about Griffith firing into a vehicle on the interstate and striking a 17-year-old in the temple of the eye. And then the investigator mentioned something that visibly registered with the judge. After the shooting, Griffith went and got her nails done. Judge Camp denied bond. In her reasoning, she described Griffith as a danger to the community and someone who would likely commit another felony if released. The judge's words about the nail salon were later reported widely because they captured something that the clinical language of criminal charges doesn't always convey. There had been no remorse, no panic, no desperate effort to undo what had happened or get help or even process it. There had been a pedicure. Ashlyn Crouch's mother, Deanna, put it plainly when she spoke to reporters. The bullet had entered behind her daughter's ear and come out through the side of her eye. And then she said something that has stayed with people who followed this case. The bullet missed everything that it needed to miss. Her daughter's eyesight was not permanently damaged. And despite the trauma, despite the brain swelling, despite the arterial damage that doctors had documented at Grady, Ashlyn Crouch survived. Diana Crouch said what she felt when she heard about the nail salon. She said it blew her mind, and she said it told her everything she needed to know about whether the woman who shot her child had spent even a moment thinking about what she had done. Ashlyn herself, speaking from her hospital room just days after the shooting, said she was grateful. She said God had kept her protected. She said she thanked God every day she was still alive. And she said something that felt like it came from a place of hard-won wisdom, the kind you don't get from a textbook. You never know what someone is thinking, or whether they're in their right mind. Stay alert, and keep your gestures to yourself. In June of 2022, a Douglas County grand jury indicted Brittany Griffith on 23 counts. The indictment included multiple charges of aggravated assault, cruelty to children, because her own 3 kids had been present throughout the incident, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, and tampering with evidence in connection with the disposal of the gun in the Chattahoochee River. She remained held without bond, a status that did not change following the indictment. The case drew sustained national attention not just because of the brutality of the act, but because of the sequence of choices that followed it. Because it illustrated something uncomfortable about what road rage actually is when it reaches its furthest extreme. It isn't a momentary loss of control. It's a sustained decision. A decision made over 10 miles, then 15 miles. A decision to keep following. A decision to keep the gun within reach. A decision to point it. A decision to pull the trigger. And then, somehow, a decision to go get your toenails done. Every step of what happened on Interstate 20 on May 1, 2022, was a choice, not a reflex, not an accident, not a misfire. A series of deliberate escalations made by a 30-year-old woman with 3 children in her back seat, pursuing a truck full of teenagers who, by all accounts, had simply changed lanes in traffic. Ashlyn Crouch was a 17-year-old on her way to a baby shower. She came home from Grady Memorial Hospital days later, bullet wound healing, eyesight intact, carrying a gratitude that she has described publicly, and a lesson she didn't ask to learn. She said she hopes Brittany Griffith finds God. That kind of grace from someone who had a gun fired at her head is not something that gets covered in the news cycle as often as the horror that preceded it. The $5,000 reward that led to Griffith's identification was never the reason she was caught. She walked in on her own. She had seen her face everywhere, in the hands of people she knew, circulating through the same social media platforms she used. The public had done in minutes what investigators might have taken days to do. A still frame from a few seconds of shaky cell phone footage, posted to a police department's Facebook page on a Sunday evening, produced a name before the night was over. That detail matters, because in cases like this one, where a suspect flees and disposes of evidence, and the only witnesses are traumatized teenagers trying to hold themselves together at a gas station, the difference between a solved case and an unsolved one can come down to a single photograph and the willingness of a community to look at it and say, "I know who that is." In this case, they did.